Ethan Cole had spent his entire life believing solitude was safer than hope, and that belief was the reason he bought the mountain cabin without ever stepping foot inside it, wiring the money with a calm finality that matched the way he had buried his past, quietly, completely, and without witnesses. The ranch had failed after the drought. The town had turned its back, and the woman he once planned to marry had chosen a life that didn't include a man who smelled of dust and disappointment. So when the real estate listing appeared, remote cabin off-grid as is, no inspections, it felt less like a risk and more like a surrender he could live with. A place far enough from memory that nothing could follow him there. And as his truck climbed the narrow dirt road at dusk, pine trees closing in like silent judges and the sky burning orange behind the peaks, Ethan felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not fear, but the quiet expectation of emptiness finally fulfilled. The cabin stood exactly as promised. Rough-hewn logs darkened by age, a sagging porch, windows reflecting nothing but forest. And when he cut the engine, the silence hit him so hard it rang in his ears, the kind of silence that makes a man feel like the last living thing on earth. And that was when he noticed the smoke curling lazily from the chimney, thin and unmistakably alive, his hand freezing on the door handle as every instinct screamed that something was wrong, that places like this weren't supposed to be warm, weren't supposed to be waiting, and yet there it was, a soft amber glow behind the curtains like the cabin itself was breathing. He stepped out slowly, boots crunching on gravel, heart pounding in a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. And when he pushed open the door expecting rot, dust, maybe a raccoon nest, what greeted him instead was the smell of coffee, real coffee, rich and human. And then he saw her standing near the stove, barefoot on the wooden floor, wrapped in a loose flannel shirt that wasn't his, dark hair falling in a careless wave down her back, turning toward him with eyes that widened, not in fear but in shock so raw it mirrored his own. And for a suspended second neither of them spoke, the fire popping softly between two lives that were never meant to collide. She was beautiful in a way that felt unintentional, not polished or posed but alive, like someone who belonged to the wild rather than escaped into it. And Ethan's first thought, ridiculous and immediate, was that he must have finally gone mad. That loneliness had invented her the way thirst invents mirages, until she spoke his name, or rather shouted, "Who are you?" with a tremor that made it painfully real, and his voice came out hoarse as he said, I bought this place, the words sounding absurd even to him, because how do you buy something that already holds someone's breath, someone's warmth, someone's life? Her face drained of color, then flushed, a storm of emotions crossing it so fast he couldn't name them, and she set the mug down with shaking hands before saying quietly, "That's impossible." But impossibility had already crossed the threshold, tracking dirt onto the floor, breathing heavily in a room meant for one. And as explanations tumbled out, bank errors, old deeds, a caretaker arrangement that ended abruptly, Ethan listened but couldn't stop noticing the details. The way her fingers bore small scars from work. The way the cabin had been transformed into a home with shelves of books, herbs drying by the window, a quilt folded with care, proof that she hadn't just survived here but lived. And the realization hit him harder than any betrayal he'd known. This place wasn't empty because it had never been meant to be. It had been waiting for her, and now inexplicably for him too. Tension thickened the air as the fire burned lower and the night pressed closer. And when she finally admitted she had nowhere else to go, that the cabin was all she had after leaving something she refused to name, Ethan felt a choice open inside him, sharp and dangerous, because he could call the sheriff, assert his rights, reclaim solitude the way he always had, or he could do something far more terrifying, stay, share, let another human being exist in the same fragile space he had, built to protect his wounds. He surprised himself by saying, "It's cold out there," gesturing to the dark beyond the windows. "We'll figure it out in the morning." And the relief that crossed her face was so immediate, so unguarded, it cracked something in him he thought had turned to stone years ago. And as they sat on opposite sides of the small table, strangers bound by accident and firelight, Ethan realized that the cabin he bought to disappear into had just found him instead. And if you're feeling that pull right now, that sense that something unexpected is unfolding, then you already know this story isn't about a cabin at all. It's about what happens when two broken paths cross in the wilderness. So stay with us, subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning of a night that will change everything.